we're going to just give you an overview of what the data sets that we are publishing in the UN Digital Library are, but also a little bit a better idea of what we are trying to do with our data, where they come from, and sometimes the shortcomings they have. So this is really going to be what are the data sets, right? And then we're going to just show you how to find them, how to download them. And then I'm going to give you some more information on some of the data set we have there. Not all of them, but so you have an idea of what they are. And finally, I'm just going to give some information what we do in the library in terms of data beyond the downloadable data sets. To start with, the library has a lot of data because basically since its inception, the library has been describing the UN documents and then other aspects of UN negotiations, like the library has been creating like speech index, voting records, etc. And we know all that data has a lot of values because we have a lot of requests for it. But the data was initially meant to find UN documentation, right? And now it actually shape in some data that could be used for data analysis. So we have a lot of requests. People would like our data because it has a lot of value. At the same time, we are dealing with legacy data, meaning the library didn't enter its information on a catalog, like on a computer, until the 1970s, 80s, right? So everything that were before had to be done retrospectively. So we have gaps sometimes. We cannot say this is a data set from 1946 always. And then we would like also, sometimes it's structured. It's pretty well structured, but sometimes it's also semi-structured. So we have a lot of free text and a lot of notes, etc. And then we would like to open our data to everybody, but that's not always possible. I've seen some of you in the audience are data scientists or web developer, and obviously people want our data, but it's not possible for the library at the moment to provide a wide access to our data, let's say through API. So that's what we would like to do. That's our ideal, right? So we would like to offer a set of service where you can have downloadable data set that you can download. You will have access to API. And also we would like to have websites and data dashboards so then people can interact directly online with the data. But for now, what we have been able to really do is the downloadable data sets, because that's a little bit the easiest way to do things to do. And then that's what you have available in the library. So when dealing with our data set, you have to remember some quality criteria. So we are trying to follow a couple of data quality criteria before we publish the data sets. That's why, for example, you wouldn't find data set on everything. We have a lot of demand to have, like, let's say, I want the list of all the draft resolutions that have not been adopted. But this data, we still have a lot of gaps. So we don't publish it at downloadable dataset. So what we are trying to do is, like, when we can have a dataset that is historically complete, when we can have data that is that has a high level of consistency, we will see sometimes we cannot. Sometimes you have some, for example, a field, data points that may not be totally comprehensive. We're trying to complete it, but it's not always possible, but that's one of the criteria we take into account. And then we're trying to publish those data sets once or twice a year. So this is not live data. Finding the data set is actually relatively easy. We currently have 8 data sets published. So if you're familiar with the United Nations Digital Library, there's a collection called Datasets, and from there you can browse the dataset. You will have the title, the description, you will have information on the usage, and then I will show you. You will also have the possibility to find the data dictionary, what are the fields, etc. And sometimes we will inform you on some issues with one field. For instance, it has that many empty rows, etc. So I will show you how we do that. So this is the UN digital library. Digitallibrary.un.org if you're not familiar. And then here you have the dataset. So before I go there, the dataset, what we do with the dataset, we extract data that are in the other collection, especially documents, voting data, speeches, and also a weird things that you probably don't use, which is called the authority. You don't need to know that, but it's to say like the data set are basically an extract of some of the data that we have in the UN digital library, and sometimes in one of our other systems. Mostly what people always want is the voting data, right? But when you go to the voting data, and when you look like record by record, right, you can see the answer for one resolution. And obviously, today, what people want to do is to compare 2, 3 countries or more, knowing how they have voted over time on a specific subject, etc., which with our regular browsing by voting data, using the voting data collection, we cannot do. Similar to the speeches, right? So people would like a list of speeches, what have people spoken on, who were the speaker, etc. Analysis on the gender of the speakers, that kind of things. You cannot do it if you browse the speeches. You can find one speech one by one. If you are not familiar, I'm just going to show you. Right, you can search, I don't know, you can search, I don't know, Congo or whatever, and then you can find different speeches by country, etc. If you are not familiar to that, my colleagues also provide search training on those particular aspects. And then finally, people want list of documents, right, which is here, which is like what we call bibliographic data. So for example, they want a list of resolutions, decisions, etc. For a specific body. And sometimes we have information in the record, sometimes hidden in the record, not even here, and people will like to analyze what happened, etc. So this is basically to enable people to do some data analysis. We have developed those data sets. So they are not everything, as I already mentioned, because we try really to be able to have the most complete data set possible before we published. And also because one of the reasons we did the data set was to diminish the demand to access to our data or the demand to scrap the digital library, because some, now with programming, people can basically scrap everything and take everything and do their things, but that's not really a good practice because that makes the overall interface unstable. So we were like, okay, people always want the voting data, so why don't publish it? So let's dive a little bit in those data sets. So if you click here, you have the list of the data set here. We have various data sets. So here you see the first one is the permanent representative. So that's basically an export of all the permanent representatives that have been in the UN with some information. We have something with the UN member states. So that's not only the current member state, but that's also all the different names that the member state have had, and then how to group them, when they become members, etc. And we have the UN thesaurus, which is more specialized for a librarian, which is like a taxonomy of subjects. I'm not going to show it more in detail after. And then we have the General Assembly General Debate speeches, which we were able to complete recently from 1946, and the list of resolution of the GA, the voting data of the GA, the voting data of the Security Council, and a list of Security Council member state representatives and presidents. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. Now we will dive more in some of those data. I will start with the general debate speeches. So those are all the speeches that have been delivered during the main part of the General Assembly and the general debate specifically. So you have all the speeches by president, prime minister, etc. And so it's comprehensive from 1946. So this is in the data we will see, you have one row equal one speech. And we extracted that from two sources, which are the speeches themselves, and also we cross-reference with the personal names. And then with those two, you can have, for example, analysis of gender by country, etc. Because we have not only personal names, but also a number of information about the person who delivered the record, its country, etc. It does not include the speech itself, right? The speeches, they are always in the meeting records, and then they are not split. So this is not something we can provide, let's say, to do a text analysis of the speeches. For that, you will need to do your own work to split the meeting records. And so if you want to have more information, so I'm going back to that. So, and I'm going to show you now. So this is the General Assembly General Debate, right? On the record itself, you find, the title that we are the publisher, and the small notes here to explain what it is, when it was extracted the last time, what it covers, and then information about how you can use it. So as long as it's not in a commercial use, please continue to attribute the digital library. It's really important for us. But this is the kind of information you have. But maybe before you want to download the record itself, then you would like to download information about the record. And you always have something called MD, and MD stands for metadata. So if I download it and I open it, you can see it's a note, and then you can see you have something here called data dictionary, and then it will tell you exactly what you have in the data set. Some of those data sets are really heavy, so sometimes you don't want to open and to upload and to look at it right away, and you would like to know what exactly there are. And then you can see, so you will find the name of the representative who deliver, the salutation, which can be used to represent gender. The salutation is as it appears in the meeting records. We don't made up, or we don't make any assumption on the person. We just look at the meeting records, and what is recorded there, we just transcribed it. The member state the individual represent, which session of the General Assembly they spoke, etc. The meeting date, the meeting symbol. So if you want after to have access to the meeting record, it's here. The agenda item, which provide information a little bit on the subject, but it's mostly all the time general debate, and sometimes you have something else. And you have obviously the link to the individual record in the digital library. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So now, once you know which one, you can download the file data set. So that's a CSV file, right? So you can download it. Okay, it download, and then from here you can upload it in Excel. So I go to an empty sheet. When you upload a CSV, for those of you who are not familiar, in an Excel, use the data option rather than opening it directly in your computer. The reason is that this is the only way you will have the diacritics, the accent, that will be rendered correctly. So usually you go like that. I get the data. So from files, this is text CSV. And then I go to my download. And then I can import it. Right? Okay, it imports the data. I load it. You can also do some transformation if you're familiar, if you're like advanced Excel user, and you can upload the data here. Up, I close that. And here you already have a number of information. This is the field I show you, but you can see how it is. Also, an advantage of using the data, it comes as a nice table, so you don't have the risk to mix up sometime column and row. And you see one row, it's one person who delivers one speech. So one row equals one speech. The session number, the country the person represented, etc. From there, one reason why we wanted the downloadable data set was also like people that are not data scientists or computer scientists or web developer, and then have maybe are only advanced user or basic user of Excel can already do some analysis, right? So I'm just going to show something you can do really easy. You can, for instance, put insert, and then here you can use a pivot chart, for instance. And sorry, you have to select the right things. And then you can already start building, let's say, a little visualization. Super easy, right? You can say, okay, I want member state, and I want the salutation, and then let's do the opposite. We're going to put salutation member state, and then I'm going to do simply a count of people by member state, and then you can already, for instance, select how did I do the salutation before, etc., and get some statistic after on the person. It's really not well done, no, but if you know a little bit how to do it, you can do it. You can already select the member state you would like, and then do some kind of comparison if you wanted. That's really easy things you can do, right? And then, or if you want to know how many misses against how many mister, you already have a good visualization. So anyone with a little bit of Excel skills, not too complicated, can already do some analysis, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have like those data in an easy format that anybody can manipulate. So let's go back to my PowerPoint. Well, so that's it. So for all the data set I'm going to show, you will have that. You will have the information on which fields are used, and then you will have the CSV to download. Also, another data set that we have is the list of all resolutions adopted by the General Assembly. Again, it's comprehensive 1946. To present, the row is one row equal one resolution, and it's extracted from the voting records, not the bibliographic record. We could choose both, but for data completion reason, we choose to extract from the voting records. We may change in the future, but currently that's the case. So again, I'm not going to do it for all of it, but if you go back to the list, you have the General Assembly resolution. Yeah. You can download here, or like I did before here, you can download here the file. I'm just going to look at it. see if there's anything we should know. Yeah. Okay. This is it. So you always look at data dictionary to have the list of what you find in it. And then you find the resolution. And then here, for instance, you find information about the draft, the symbol of the draft resolution, but you say, oh, it's not filled. They weren't able to provide the information for all the resolutions, right? So we are indicated how many resolutions we were not able to provide that specific information. Vote note, it's more normal because usually we put a note when something peculiar happened. So that's normally you don't have a lot. And then you have the total number of yes, no, abstention, etc. You see there's a lot of empty rows. So this is not an error. This is because, as we know, you may know, the General Assembly, there's a lot of General Assembly resolutions that are actually adopted without votes. So in that context, we cannot have information about vote because they didn't vote. Simple. So that's why you have a lot of empty row for the vote here. Sometimes we have people that contact us and say why, etc. But that's just because this is how the General Assembly works. One important, I'm not going to download this one, but what important things to remember about this and the voting data after is like, this is really adopted resolutions, right? Those are not draft resolutions. And now we have probably almost, I don't know, popular data sets, which are the voting data. We have the voting data for the General Assembly and the Security Council. The voting data are only on adopted resolutions. They are not and they are adoption of the voting in the plenary meeting. So for General Assembly, you won't find voting data on what happened in the committee, and you won't find voting data on what happened when a draft resolution was not adopted, and you won't find information on on paragraph level voting. It's only like when the draft is adopted as a whole, then we have the voting data. It's important to note because for those of you who are familiar, especially with the General Assembly, the General Assembly sometimes, let's say for all the budget draft resolution or most of the budget draft resolution, they have a lot of talk in the fifth committee, and then they adopt everything as a whole, like as if they agreed on everything. But a lot of things happen in the committee before, right? So sometimes we want to make analysis and assumption about what the data means, but you have, when you do that, when you analyze the data and you do that, you always have to keep in mind, how does the body I have the data about actually working? What are they working? What are their practice? Sometimes it shows a lot of agreement, but since our data don't have the things that are not adopted and don't have other data in the committee, it might not be what can I say? It might not be an exact reflection about what really happened, and then about the different discussion and negotiations. Okay, so for that, I'm still going to show you a little bit more. Here we go. So I'm back in the digital library. I go back, and then we have the General Assembly voting data. I'm not going to take this one because it's pretty heavy, right? As you can see, it has a lot of information if I go in this one. So I'm not going to download the data for this one. Just going to show you. So here again, you have the information. So in the voting data, you always have what we call a member state code. This is a 3-letter code. When you do analysis of voting data, it's important to use code rather than the full name, because member states tend to change names a lot. Sometimes, it's not a really important change. Sometimes it's an important change, a government change, and then they change name, but they are the same member state, right? So when you do analysis, it's better to privilege the code. We have the vote of the member state, because in the voting data, one row equal one vote, right? So it's really by member state vote, not like overall. Obviously, information about the resolution, the draft resolution, again, a lot of empty rows here. It's normal, because if we are missing it for one resolutions, in fact, we are missing it for all the member states. And then information about the committee report, the meeting, the title of the resolution, agenda, etc. And then we still keep here information about the total, how the resolution was adopted. So number of total yes, total no, number of abstention, number of member states that did not vote. It happened relatively often in the General Assembly. It happened a little bit less in the Security Council, but that might happen too. And then you have the total number of member states that were voting at that time, right? And which may change over time. Okay, so this is for the General Assembly. This is more or less the same for the Security Council. In the Security Council, you will have something different. You will be able to filter the data set by permanent member versus non-permanent member. Remember, the Security Council, it's 15 members, so you won't have always all the country, all the member state of the UN, right? So sometimes analysis might be a little bit more tricky to do, because you have member states that are elected for a 2 years period. So for the Security Council, I had already uploaded the vote here, but I did the same as before, data from text, right? Like I showed you before. And then you can see here you have the code, which allow people to group. Maybe I have, it looks like I had a filter by members, by some member state. You can select all, doesn't matter. So you see, etc. You have a specific column that tell you, oh, is it a permanent member or not? So if you wanted to analyze only the permanent member, you can filter that out relatively easily. You have the vote. Was it a yes? Was it an abstention? Was it a no? Obviously, you will never find in that data set that France voted no, because again, this is the data set on adopted resolution in the Security Council, right? So if France voted no, it's a veto, so we didn't record the vote. We have a project to do it, but it's not completed. And yeah, and when you have information about the draft, you will find it here. You can see here the oldest one we don't, but we are working on completing that as well. Information. Here we put descriptions, because the real title of the resolution is simply Security Council Resolution 511. And everything we put into bracket, it's the library that kind of adds something about the topic, right? So you will find it here. And here we have the agenda, which again, you have it for a more recent one, but we are working on completing that. So this is the agenda of the meeting and during which the resolution was adopted. And that's pretty much it. Again, here, I did a little bit of analysis before, just so quick to show you using the pivot table and quick visualization. And I took the permanent member here. And then you see, you can quickly see the number of yes, the number of no, etc. Obviously, for more, what can I say, more analysis, you will probably be better to find the percentage than the total number. It's not always a good indicator, but those are already things that you can do. And I think that's pretty good. So here, for instance, I had taken only, I have excluded all the resolution where everybody voted yes, like everything that was adopted unanimously. I didn't take it because, and I just interested in draft resolution that were adopted, but not with a unanimous adoption, right? So that's what I did. But just to show you that, again, with a spreadsheet, you just upload the CSV, then you can quickly do something that can be interesting for you. If you just want the comparison of two countries, you can quickly select the country here using the code rather than the name, and then you can work from here.
Can I interrupt just really quickly before we move off of that? There's just a question about someone looking at voting over the years, like on a particular item. Can you show in like the CSV how you would do that?
Yeah, so that would be looking at the agenda, or that would be selecting only the resolution that, for instance, have a certain word here. So for example, if I put like, I don't know, Middle East, I'm just like doing it, right? And then it will select only the resolution that have Middle East. And then I could, either download another, and then I could start doing my analysis. Or you can also do it here if you have exported all the things. So if I remove everything I did here, right? Everything I did. Okay, I'm removing anything I did. And then let's say, so I said I want a filter. So I put a filter here, description, and then I will put Middle East or Congo. And I'm like, okay, I just select Congo. I still don't have nothing. And then I want to compare, let's say permanent member vote. So I'm going to put permanent member. I'm going to put the code or the name. And then, no, not the filter, on the axis. Okay. Why does it look like, okay, permanent member. I will have them here. I can also filter if I wanted. And then let's say the vote. The vote. And then I'm going to add the vote again, but I'm going to count, right? So I'm going to remove those because I might not always be interesting. And then, oops, what happened? Oh no, that's, what did I do? MS vote, count of NS. Oh, sorry. Shouldn't put count because that wouldn't work. No, so I shouldn't put the vote itself. I should put, let's say, the resolution itself, because it's going to be a different one. And then that why doesn't that work? Anyway, that's why I never do things.
I think it's okay. I think
it's okay. Yeah. Like on the fly, obviously I didn't select the right one, but yeah. So this is something you could do, but that wouldn't be the count. I think will be like count distinct or something like that, or the total maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, I will have to test. So yeah. So basically, this is how I will do. So you can easily filter things. If you do programming, then you will have an easiest way to do it, but that's how I will do. Let's go back. Okay, so there's just one last, I think, I'm not going to present all the data set. I think you have a little bit of idea how it works. The last data set that I will only speak about is called the UN member states data set. So this one is more like for people that actually are able to reconcile two spreadsheets together, because it provides information on change of member states. So if you have a data set that has always the name of the member states at the time of the event and doesn't have the code like we do, this data set has code, so you might find information in it. So that might be useful for any of you that do some data analysis and want to reconcile a data set that don't always have that code. Like the voting data have it, but for example, not the speeches. the speeches may not always have it. So that's it. Okay. I think we already have 40 minutes, so we're already getting to the end. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about what we're trying to do apart from the downloadable dataset. We have an API, but we cannot provide it to a lot of people because it's still unstable. Currently, it's only to internal audiences, meaning like a department of the secretariat that need it. And to some extent, member state will try, but we're still not able to extend that to member state at the moment. And we are not able to extend that to researchers at all. We are working on some solution, and I hope soon we are going to have something like, for example, data dump for the most requested data set we have, the raw data that will be updated every day, but that's still not the case. Also, we're working on a number of websites and dashboards. We already have some what we call data-driven website. The digital library obviously is one, and you can do a lot of research in it if you know the data. We also have something called UN member state on the record that we will look slowly to make it more data-driven. And then for what we call master data, if you're interested in semantic standards, if you don't understand what that is, that's fine, no worries. If you understand, we have metadata.un.org. Those are linked data standards. So also for this one, you may have access to the API directly. And also in the pipeline, so we're working with the ETH in Zurich, which is a university in Switzerland, to develop a general voting data dashboard. So currently we have a working prototype, but it's not live. We are working to have a new linked data, which are the UN member states ontology, with information about ontology, which would be a little bit the same as you have in the CSV, but again, in linked data standards, so that will be easiest to query. You don't need to download, upload. The data dump, I already say that we were discussing it. And then in terms of data, we always try to make new data sets. So something we really want to do is like the voting data on non-adopted draft resolution for the Security Council. And then probably maybe new speeches data. Okay, so this is the end. I don't know if you have a question. Don't hesitate to contact the library if you have. We will try to answer. And if you have data needs and you're from the secretariat, let us know. We'll try also to accommodate your needs within our capacity. I hope you enjoy the data, and then let us know what you think about it. That's so great for us to continue to develop the service, obviously.